Welcome, everybody, to Dad's Watching Sports. It is Sunday, February the 21st, 2021. It's 8:30 p.m., and that can only mean one thing. That's right. The dads are back for our live stream / podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the show. Michael Draper, Kyle Squishy Daddy Castles in the household. How are you, Squishy Daddy?
I was a lot better before you started calling me Squishy Daddy.
Well, you told me the story before the show started about your son and playing a board game and how you were the hippo or the rhino.
The hippo. Thank you.
Was the biggest, and little Jack gave you a little poke there and said "Squishy Daddy." Hey, we've all been squishy, Daddy, and we all will be. That's just kind of how it goes. But Kyle, one thing we're going to get into before this show is over with, and I can't wait to talk about this. So I went back and listened to last week's show, just a little snippet. For those of you that checked out our show last week, if you remember, I've got a smoke detector right up here above my head that started going off mid-show, and so I jumped off. Kyle had some very funny commentary. So Kyle, don't you worry, we're going to get to that. At some point in time.
You called me Squishy Daddy. We're not even now?
Maybe. We'll see. But anyways, thanks so much for joining Dad's Watching Sports. Again, this is episode 53, Sunday the 21st. We are live. If you are checking us out on our podcast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us a rating and review. We would be so much obliged if you do that. Kyle, we got a lot to talk about. But before you and I just get into our banter, man, we've got a pretty great guest coming up here on the show, and we're going to bring him on in just a second. He is Cole Cublic of the SEC Network. He's a college football analyst, also played football for the Auburn Tigers, and we'll bring him on now. So, Cole, how are you doing, sir? And welcome to Dad's Watching Sports.
Hey, guys, doing well. I appreciate you having me on tonight. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We very much appreciate you coming on. First off, everybody kind of down here in the South, we've been hunkering down with some winter weather here recently. How are things your way?
Things are good now. We spent most of the day outside today. It was actually beautiful. A little chilly in the morning and the evening, but once the sun came out, it was fantastic. We had one half day of snow here in Homewood, suburb of Birmingham. Woke up, I guess it was last Tuesday morning, and had snow on the ground. Came down for a few hours. About 2 or 3 o'clock, it was gone, and we were back to normal by late afternoon. But it was cool for the kids to be able to see that and get outside and play a little bit. Didn't have a show that day, so that made it a lot better.
Absolutely. Well, we're both in the Nashville area, and so we had quite a bit, and we're still recovering from the winter apocalypse. But we'll talk a little bit about that later, Kyle. Well, Cole, again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. As I had mentioned to you, we like to talk some sports, but we also talked a lot about dad life, and so we're going to get into a lot of that with you in just the few minutes that we have you here. But first off, we've crowned a national champion. Alabama ran the gamut. They were just dominant and kind of the most dominant form and fashion. We've crowned a champion, and now it seems like literally the minute after the championship game is over with, people start talking, okay, let's look at our way too early top 25. It's what everybody does. We're going to kind of reveal ours later on in the show, but as you're looking at 2021, what are some of the things that you're looking at for that top 25? Who are maybe your top 6? Who's a sleeper that you might throw in, and et cetera?
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult to really ascertain after a couple teams who we or most individuals or a lot of people believe can realistically compete for a shot in the college football playoff. Alabama and Clemson are going to be there. For me, I think Georgia's going to be there. Georgia, if we're just going right now today, obviously a lot can change. Things will be different by the time the season wraps around. I think Georgia would be number one for me going into the season. And I look at what they have returning, what they did last year. I think that staff continuity is going to be back with Dan Lanning back at D.C. Obviously, Monken's back as offensive coordinator. It's not going to be, hey, let's wait on this quarterback, or let's try to make sure this quarterback stays on the roster, or this guy's a little bit safer of an option. Let's play him. It's going to be JT Daniels, which will open up that offense. They've got playmakers on the perimeter, loaded at tailback, solid group of tight ends. I thought Washington was great last year as a freshman. And I think the offensive line is good enough to be able to manage what they're going to want to do. And they had the best defensive line returning to college football. Getting Jordan Davis back was massive.
Sure.
Julian Rochester says he's coming back. Then Devontae Wyatt says he's coming back. So there's some holes in the secondary. There's no question about that. But what they're going to be able to do up front, most likely with fewer numbers, even losing Ojulari on the edge, man, you still got Trayvon Walker, you still got Kobe Dean, you got other guys who can hurt you off the edge there. The way they manage that thing, I think, gives them an opportunity. You know, they have I think they have a huge luxury opening with Clemson week 1, because I really look at their season and I say, you got to beat one of two teams. You either got to beat Clemson in the opener, or you got to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. You can't lose both and still get in. If you split those, you're probably in, because I think if they beat Clemson, they probably run the table until they get to Atlanta. And if you got to win against Clemson and you win the SEC East and go down to Alabama, you're still probably in. You lose to Clemson in the opener, you go beat Bama in the SEC championship game, you're in. I mean, even if you slip up somewhere else, you're probably in if that happens. So I think that people are going to look at that schedule and say, oh, no, how can they do it? It's unbelievable. And I would look at it and say, I think it's a massive opportunity to be able to probably bookend your schedule and say, if you split those two games, there's a good chance that you're in. I could easily debate Alabama at 1. I know what they lose. I know what's gone. I still think they win the West. I still think they have a great chance to win the SEC, but there's a lot gone, and there's a lot that's going to be different. I don't know if there's too many teams on the schedule that can realistically beat them, because I think A&M is going to be very different, and that's a team at the end of last year that probably would have had a better chance to be competitive. But I think there are a couple of teams in the West that are going to be different. I think Mississippi State will be better. If Ole Miss can find any defense, I think they're still going to be pretty good. I think LSU is going to surprise some people, because when you look at that LSU roster, and I think Johnson's going to end up being the quarterback. You got a wide receiver that has more receiving yards in a single game than any receiver in SEC history. Not last year, all time. You got some dudes on the perimeter. They're fine at tailback. Most of the offensive line is going to be back. I think LSU will surprise some folks. I think Ray Jenkins is going to be a really good receiver. And then they got Ojulari, a pass rusher. They got big defensive tackle depth inside. They need some safety help. Cordell Flatt's a great corner. We know Stingley's the best corner in college football. You're going to be fine on the outside on defense, and I think that allows you to do a lot of different things. So there's just too many players. There's too many guys. There's too much talent on the LSU team for them to – I mean, they were just young last year. They were young. They had to change guys. They had some games canceled. They had big COVID issues and injury issues during the course of the season. I think that'll be a little bit different for them this year, and I expect LSU to probably be the second best team in the West. I still like what Jimbo's doing. He's got an amazing group of tight ends. He's got the best offensive lineman returning in the SEC in Kenyon Green. I think the right guard they plug next to him, they have a chance to have the best guard combination in the conference. And you got Spiller back at tailback. That's a great place to start. You know, good tight ends. You'll get some weapons back at receiver. You just got to break in a new quarterback, and that's not easy in Jimbo's system. It's super complicated. It's long. It's lengthy. It's diverse. It's hard. But they'll have an opportunity because they got their whole D-line back for the most part. And I think that group's going to be able to allow Coach Elko to do some things that maybe he wasn't really able to do last year. So I don't really feel great about Auburn, to be honest with you. I love what Sam did in Fayetteville last year. Got to see what's going to happen with quarterback there to think if they're going to be competitive again. I think Barry did an amazing job with that defense. And I mean, I think if there's a team in the East that can even be scary, like I'm not going to really say competitive, but I'm going to say scary with Georgia, I think it's probably Kentucky. Because I think Florida is just I think Florida loses way too much. I think Florida's going to be very different. They still can't block anybody. They had real defensive problems towards the end of last season. That's not just in the bowl game. And Dan is a good enough coach to be able to manage some things with Emory Jones and allow some more quarterback runs and be more difficult to defend that way. But they're not going to have the individual matchup problems that they had last year. And that changes who you are offensively. I think Kentucky knows Bo Allen's going to be the guy at quarterback. You got to transfer. It really comes down to that transfer receiver. And if he can give them any kind of threat downfield, that will immediately make them different than what they've been the last 3 to 5 years. So that's a massive, massive deal. You only lose Drake Jackson on the offensive line. You got one of the most explosive tailbacks really in college football, and Christopher Rodriguez, probably the most explosive tailback that nobody really knows about.
Yep.
The whole D-line's coming back. Most of front seven's back. Brad White is an amazing defensive coordinator. Coach Stoops will have them ready. And I think they will look at last year and say, we had a chance last year to really do some good things, and we kind of blew it. And all the guys that are coming back, I think they'll find a way to sort of reverse that course. But rest of the top 6, I mean, Clemson's in there, like I said. I think Oklahoma would be in there. I'm probably going to have Iowa State close, if not in. I think Miami is probably in. The team that would be hard for me right now is Ohio State. I was going to be honest with you guys. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of Ohio State right now. They did not have another quarterback throw a pass in the game last year.
Right.
So I don't know how anybody can sit there and be really confident with what you're getting. At least we've seen what the next quarterback looks like in Tuscaloosa. We've seen what the next quarterback in Gainesville looks like. We know what the quarterback in Norman's going to look like. We know what the quarterback for Matt Campbell's going to look like. I have no idea what's really coming at that position, and that's an important position on that football team with how they operate. You lose Wyatt Davis, you lose Josh Myers at guard and center. The defensive line wasn't the same last year, and that's where they have really given people fits over the last few years. And your best tailback's gone. Without Trey Sermon, the last 3 to 5 games, they're not near as good of a team, I don't believe. So I don't know. I don't think Ohio State would be in my top 6 right now. And people will say, "Oh, he's an SEC homer, doesn't know what he's talking about." I would tell you that you're absolutely right. I don't know what I'm talking about with Ohio State because I don't believe there are enough proven commodities to have built my confidence to make them a top 5 team right now. So I'm not just going to do it because they got a bunch of little Buckeye stickers on their helmet. I'm not going to say that they're a top 5 team when I haven't seen enough to believe it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I got to say this right off the bat. The fact that you brought up Kentucky and possibly winning the East or being in contention.
No. He never said.
Hey, he said contention. And as a UK fan, I'm all on the train. When they started getting
Mississippi State would be better. And all but look, let's be honest. There's not much to get worse there. So
very true.
Well, I think the thing in Starkville is if you would have taken. If you could go back and take all the guys that started to show up late and just start with them, I really think probably the last 4 weeks of the season would have been very different. And you had a couple winnable games in there late that I think they're just young. We had the Egg Bowl. They had their chances in that game. We had the Auburn game. They're in that game and could not get a first down. It's just I think Will Rogers is going to be fine. I think they got a couple of young talented receivers. Now you lose some real leadership on defense, and that worries me. But if they figure the offensive line out, then I think they're going to be okay. I felt like they were a little stubborn last year with their splits and how they managed that group. If they alter that a little bit, then that thing's going to work. People look at it and say, "Oh, they had one good game." It's just. It will work, even if people are going to rush 3 and drop 8. They've been doing that forever. They will find a way to make it work, and now they have a guy that I think is patient with it and knows how to operate it. But the offensive line, they've got to figure that position out because they will. I do not believe they can manage that group the same way that it was managed in the Big 12 and the Pac-12. It will not work in this league.
Well, I agree with you, and I'm actually going to get it a little bit off script here, and hopefully that's okay. But I want to go back to your top 6. You mentioned Iowa State, and I have them number 7 on my list. Spoiler alert. But a team you didn't mention that I think can give Clemson a run in the ACC is that Mac Brown's North Carolina team.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of talent there. I like the quarterback there. And I know you're an SEC guy, but you are obviously very knowledgeable because you talk a lot about the offensive line, and I played on the offensive line at Samford down there in Homewood. So I appreciate you talking about that. But anything you want to say about North Carolina, the ACC, and how close they are, you think, to Clemson?
I think at the skill position, I don't think that there's really much of a drop off. Trevor Lawrence, yes, he was a little bit ahead of Sam Howell. No one's going to really argue that, but Sam Howell's fantastic, and I think with his experience right now, you put him ahead of Ualungale because he's just started more games. He's got more experience. He's played more years. Tailback receiver, I don't think there's much difference at all with ATN being gone. I think North Carolina was actually a little bit deeper at tailback. And Clemson, one of the reasons that I'm not really high on Clemson this year, and I think their biggest issue last year was their offensive line. I don't think that they're ready for that group to be great going into this year. North Carolina seems to, Coach Searles kind of has them steadily growing a little bit. They're getting better and better. They're still not a dominant group, but with the way Coach Longo runs that offense, they don't have to be. And the thing that I think really changed for them last year was Phil Longo went from, and this, I'm not pointing a finger at him or calling him this, but just the way it was managed at times. If you went back a few years ago and you watched like the A&M game. I'm trying to think of what other games come to mind. There was just a few games that the play calling was almost irresponsible at times, where you didn't need to put the ball in the air there. You needed to throttle back and hold on and get a win on the road and just get out of there. It doesn't matter how many yards you get. He really changed that last year, and he became much more balanced with their looks, with their calls, and he still stayed up tempo and explosive, but I think he managed it much better a season ago. I worry about him a little bit up front on defense. I think they're pretty athletic in the second and third level, but I don't know if when you ask a question like that, I think about them in the postseason. I think they can be fine, and it'll come down to one or two games to whether or not they're going to be right there with Clemson, but I think about them more in the postseason, and the line of scrimmage is where I think they would really have some problems. I don't know if they've recruited well enough to be there just yet, but they are going to be a very dangerous football team this coming up season. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
We're talking with Cole Cublic of the SEC Network. Cole, so I've got one more question kind of related to football, and then we're going to get into kind of some dad stuff. This year, obviously, this past year was unlike anything we had ever seen in terms of having to not have as many fans, if any fans, and the protocols and everything. So as somebody who covered, the sport and was there kind of week in and week out in those stadiums, what was that like this past season, just going through that?
It was very different, and we could get into a lot of ways that it was different via the broadcast, technically,
right,
from a camaraderie standpoint, from a protocol standpoint, from an access standpoint. But the biggest difference that I tell people, and you don't have to be an SEC guy to have experienced this. You can be a Big 10, Big 12, ACC guy. If you've been to a big-time college football game, then you'll understand this. The biggest difference for me, and this is a little bit weird, but it was driving to the stadium every week. And, number one, obviously, it wasn't myself, Jordan, Tom, our spotter, our stats guy, all piling into a car and going together, or getting two cars and driving over there together at whatever time. We usually go 2.5 hours before kick. It wasn't that, first and foremost. It was just me. I was in a car by myself going to every game. And I can remember the Auburn-Kentucky game. I didn't see one tent. I didn't see one RV. I didn't see one motorhome. I don't even think I saw a fan or group of fans just walk around on campus when I got there, because I went, 2 hours and 15 minutes before kick. And there was just no one there. And that was, pulling into Lexington, Kentucky for the Georgia game, Georgia in town. And I'm pulling up literally 100 feet from the stadium, parking and walking in behind no one, with no one. And, that to me was the biggest difference. It's not even close. The fact that, because that's what makes college football special is, the environments, the fans, the tailgating, the frenzy, the energy, the passion. And that's not just in the stadium during a game. That surrounds it really for an entire weekend. And there was none of that. It was totally absent, even in games that there were 18,000 people or 14,000 people or 21,000 people. I stayed at a hotel 3 blocks away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. The number one team in the nation, zero doubt. And Kentucky's coming into town, and we've got that game. And I think that was I want to say that was a 3:00 kick.
Yep.
I left my hotel because I was going to walk. I left my hotel at like 12:50, 12:45. I didn't pass another human walking on the street until I got to the security guards at the stadium.
Man.
And I went by fraternity. Part of that walk was like by sorority row, where everybody would usually be, parents are in town, friends are here, we tailgate here because we can walk straight to the game. Not one individual, not one soul. And I didn't see a breathing human being on my way into that stadium. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's almost like an apocalypse, but you're going to a college football game. So that part to me was hard to deal with, kind of, because that usually gets me going. When I'm in Baton Rouge and I pull in and you're sitting in traffic for 45 minutes and you see people, you hear the music and you see like a school bus painted with, purple tiger stripes and people have these purple wigs on, whatever. It's like that gets you going. You get excited about that. Didn't have it. not one single stadium the entire year. And then the fact that Jordan and Tom and I were only actually together for, I think, 3 games this year.
Yeah.
They weren't on site the whole time. Some of the technical issues that we dealt with. I mean, Tom's power went out during the Kentucky-Mississippi State game. I'm sitting there doing play-by-play from the sideline. We lost Jordan in the Mississippi State-Auburn game a few times, and it's like you don't really know when you lose him. So Tom's kind of waiting for him to say something. I don't hear something. Do I jump in? I don't know. I don't want to step on anybody. It's just those were challenges that not our group, every group had to deal with this entire year. Not sitting down with coaches and players in person.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you guys know, like anybody, if we were all sitting in a studio right now, the energy would be different. The back and forth would be different. This whole thing would be different. It's just the reality. I do 4 hours of radio every day with 4 people in 4 different places. It's strange, man. It's weird. So all of that compounded made it odd, weird, different, strange, not as quite as enjoyable. But those trips to the stadium, man, those were the most eye-opening part of what last college football season really was for me. And I was on the road for 19 out of 20 weeks. And I feel fortunate for that. Like that's not a complaint. Like I'm grateful, thankful, very appreciative that I was able to be in those stadiums. Before SEC ball kicked off, I got to go to Memphis. I got to go to Ames. I did a high school game in Mobile. I loved every second of every minute of it. 19 out of 20 weeks I was on the road. I was in a hotel, in a rental car, on a plane. And I think I took like 38 COVID tests, not one positive test. So, I mean, it was a pretty amazing fall just to be able to do that, regardless of how different it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and for those of us that watch those broadcasts, kudos to y'all for being able to still pull off what you're able to do during the season, because I know it was not an easy feat, especially after hearing what you just said. So definitely kudos to what we call the A team with you and Tom and Jordan. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned the fans, and we're all fans, and I'm sure you have a favorite team. So I guess the question, it's like 3 questions that I'm going to run all together. Who was your favorite team growing up? How did you become a fan of that team? And is there anything you can talk to us about passing on that fanhood or that fandom down to your kids?
I didn't really have a college football team growing up. Both my parents attended South Carolina. My aunt was a Hall of Fame basketball player at Clemson. She's in that school's Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame. She was an alternate for the '88 Olympic team. So I grew up with that rivalry more than I did Auburn and Alabama. And by the time I realized how much I love college football, I knew all about South Carolina and Clemson and, Refrigerator Perry and Steve Tannehill and all those guys, and Columbia and Clemson and Williams-Brice. And I knew all that, but I began to learn about the Iron Bowl, began to learn about Auburn and Alabama. I never really leaned one direction or other with those 2 teams. I was I went through phases as a teenager. I tell people I was a college football fan, and I wanted to play college football. I loved going to games in Knoxville. I loved going to games in Gainesville. I went to a recruiting trip at Tallahassee, and that trip, being in the game at Doak was unbelievable. There was a time that I was a big Miami fan. I grew up Catholic, so there was a part of me that thought I had to cheer for Notre Dame. So I like different teams at different times. The way recruiting played out, it almost forced me to go to Auburn because Tennessee bowed out late. Alabama had scholarship limitations, so that recruitment was a little bit different down to the last minute. I didn't play a full high school game my senior year. I had an ACL issue. Was previously torn and had a couple pivot shifts, and I did not play in a full football game my senior year. So I was fortunate to be able to play in the SEC. I was going to take whatever I could get, but I did love Auburn. I remember in '95 going to the Auburn-Florida game. Auburn lost that game, but I remember walking out of that stadium as a recruit and just thinking, man, that energy, I can't even fathom being a part of that. It was such an amazing place, and the people were incredible. So that would have been it would have been Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee. It would have been a tough decision. I liked Florida a lot as a recruit. I liked Tennessee a lot as a recruit. I had some friends in recruiting that also liked Tennessee. So we obviously had conversations about, man, what if the 3 of us came here together? How cool would that be? So there was never really 1 or 2 teams. My kids know we're Auburn fans. My kids know that that my wife went to Auburn, that I went to Auburn, that a lot of our other, their aunts, uncles, cousins went to Auburn. So they know all about it. They watch Auburn more than they do any other team. My son, I don't know exactly how this happens, but if he sees anything with Alabama's logo, he references it as Yucky Alabama.
Nice.
Well done.
We didn't even really try to make that happen, but it's just it kind of happened. So it's one of those things that it has gotten going to the point that it's probably not going to stop, and I'm sure as hell not going to try to stop it. So it's just kind of – and he's done it in public a few times where it's been a little bit uncomfortable around like some diehard Alabama fans. I'm just kind of, hey, he's 3. What are you going to do? But the one constant that will definitely be there is, my dad grew up in Pittsburgh. His entire side of the family grew up in Pittsburgh. So we are Steelers fans. And they have their own terrible towels. They have their own Steelers gear. We listen to – Here We Go on game days. Like, they try to watch it with me. They can't see. I love people that say like their kids watch games with them, and I'm like, I need to be around your kids because mine get like maybe a series in, and it's on. They want to watch Coco Melon or Blippy, and it's like we're done with this. It's moving on to the next thing. I love those folks that are like, oh, my 4-year-old watches. No, they don't.
No, they
don't. I don't
buy it.
But we've got books. Like my son loves to read a book about it's a book about a dad taking his son to a Steeler game. My daughter actually likes it. So she gets into it. She loves the song and runs around with him. So that's one that I think will really be ingrained. The hard part about the Auburn thing is I'm not here. So, my wife puts the Auburn game on, but she's got 3 kids here. So she's not like, she's just trying to keep her head afloat. She's not like, hey, let's all dial in and become Auburn fans. And they also haven't been able. And I really hate this. They haven't been able to go to a bunch of games.
Yeah,
because Dad works every weekend, and there have been a few. Like my daughter has been to an Auburn game because I was working a game. We were able to take her down and kind of made it. We made it happen that way. But if they're going to go, it's either going to be with my in-laws, and they're gonna go help take them down there with my wife, which was the second game that she went to. Or it's just going to have to be Dad's working the game and we can go. And depending on what time it is, how much are they going to, if we're working a night game, like I was really pumped before pre-COVID, I was like, Auburn, Kentucky, man, I hope if we get that game and it's early, like that'll be awesome. The kids, the family can go, like we can all stay and then hang out in Auburn that night. We'll actually have some time. Didn't happen. So, but yeah, they don't get to go experience it, which, a lot of parents, if they're going to not even intentionally push their kids to become fans of a school, you're going. Like, Like I said, I can remember going to Clemson's campus. I can remember going to South Carolina games at Williams-Brice. My parents tell me stories about falling asleep in the stands during Carolina Clemson games because I was so young. But I want them to experience that. It's just hard because obviously a lot of things have to align to get them to an Auburn game.
Sure. Well, I totally failed my kids as a Kentucky fan because my daughter's first game was a Tennessee A&M football game, and my son's first game was an Alabama Mississippi State game this past year. So, I've completely failed them in that regard. All right, last couple of questions here, and then we'll let you go. We've been so appreciative of your time. Kyle, I know you've got a very specific question about these movies that we go back and forth on, and then I'll finish up.
So you got to help solve a debate between Mike and I. If you're going to sit down and watch a movie, is it Frozen or is it Moana, or do you have another one?
All right. So, I'll give you our go-to movie or movies. Okay. First thing is we are not really, really deep into movies yet. We are more into shows than movies. And
I heard you mention Coco Melon. Yeah, that is.
Well, and I kind of throw that
4-letter word around here.
Thankfully we've kind of moved on from that. We don't get as much Blippy anymore. We kind of have, and now it's getting kind of hard now because my daughter is 5 going on 25, and my son is like a young 3. So he's still Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and thinks it's great. And like he'll watch Stinky and Dirty, and she's going up. Like she wants to watch things that he has no idea like what's going on. They call it the real life Dumbo. So the real Dumbo, like not the animated Dumbo, which they will watch both. For some reason, they love those. Seen Frozen, Frozen 2. They love both of those. They love both of the Lion Kings, which kind of is weird to me because there's some other, like Snow White, some scary parts that they're not really into. And so my wife has brought it up before. She's like, you need to get away from these movies right now because every one of them is going to have at least one scene where they're not going to be able to just not see that. And that's going to become a little bit problematic. And it's almost worked out that way every time we try. Let's try this movie or try that movie. And tried Snow White. We tried Bambi, and that was bad idea. I immediately I regretted that one. There's a lot of explaining that I didn't. I set myself up for that one. So we do more shows. If it were between those, we did not make it far into Moana for some reason, and my daughter pulled the ripcord on that one. She just wanted it out. Ooh. But Frozen 2, she watched both of those. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they love Moana and their kids love it, but for some reason she just didn't. She didn't really get into it. I tell you what's really strange. If they were sitting down here right now and I said, hey, Dad's got to go do a radio show and you get to watch whatever you want, they would both immediately say Wipeout. That's exactly what they would say. And I don't know how they found it. I don't know how they stumbled upon it. I don't know where it came from, but it was on one day and they saw it and now it's the only thing they want to watch. That's it. I mean, and they just sit there and giggle and laugh and they think it's hilarious and they love it. And the best part is, I don't know how old some of these are, but there are some things that are said inside the commentary that I'm actually surprised they haven't gone back and scrubbed them out. Because I was listening to one about 3 hours ago, and I was thinking, did he just made that reference like that? That would not have flown today. That wouldn't have made the air today. I know for a fact it wouldn't have. But yeah, it's weird. That's what they're into right now, and they kind of rotate. They'll go into like Sophia the First for like 2 weeks, and then they're off, and it's something else. Like they dive in and then dive out. They dive in and then dive out. We haven't had too many super consistents. My daughter was really into Paw Patrol for a while. And now my son is kind of getting into it, but she doesn't want to watch it anymore. So I don't know if he's ever really going to be able to get into it because she's kind of pulling away from it. So it's a really sort of interesting dynamic to try to get those two to decide on what they want to watch.
Yeah, and the oldest one always gets kind of they get that deciding factor. So
she's a girl, and she's the only girl, so she's going to get her way. The poor kid. I mean, I already hear some of the things he says. And,
Absolutely. All right. Well, last question here for you, and then we'll let you get out of here. If you were not doing what you do now for ESPN, SEC Network, what would you be doing?
I have no idea because I tried a lot of other things, and I didn't like any of them. My road to the media was very long, very windy, very, very different. People ask me all the time, how do I get where you get? And I'll say, you don't want to get here the way that I got here. I did pharmaceutical sales after college. To be perfectly honest with you, I would love to say that I would be coaching because I think I would be a great coach and I would love to coach. I could not recruit. I literally could not do it. I would not be good at it. I think I would be good at it initially, and then it would just wear on me, and I'd probably be out. But I wish I could find a way to make coaching work because I would love to try to just help kids at that age. Having an understanding of doing it and everything not really being easy, I think I could help a lot of folks with that. But I did pharma sales, I did medical sales, I did insurance, I sold boxes, hated it. I mean, I made a lot of money in medical sales, so I like that part of it. But when I look back on it now, I think I didn't like that job. I was very interested in being in the operating room, and I'm very interested in the medical portion of it. Like I'm a big like orthopedic surgery nerd, probably because I've had 13, but like I can sit there and watch it and I can talk about it, and I'm interested in that. It piques my interest. So maybe something with that, but I'm not smart enough to actually be an orthopedic surgeon. So I would think I would be coaching or probably selling medical supplies, and I don't even know how happy that. I mean, it wasn't fulfilling, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe it's not fair because maybe then I thought it was, but knowing how fulfilling what I do now is, it's just not even not even close. I guess there's just no way. Pharma sales was great because we used to call it working the T's. We worked Tuesday, Thursday, 10 to 2. And that was all you had. I mean, you didn't have to do that if you were smart and you had to make it work. I mean, you got your calls in every day. You saw the people you needed to saw. You dropped off your samples and your donuts, and you're good. I drove a Pontiac Grand Prix company car and thought I was cool, and that was that. So if someone wants to get into this pharmaceutical sales, how might they do that? I like this T to T. Yeah, it's very different now. It's when I got into it, that entire world was expanding. I mean, it was blowing up, and it's really compressed now. And I think now it's experienced and specialized, and they've had so many cuts, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years. But I mean, pharma they've been making cuts for the last 5-8 years, so it's gotten kind of tough to get into.
Absolutely. All right, Cole. Well, again, thanks so much, man, for taking the time out and coming on with us. And enjoyed hearing, kind of all the takes on college football as well as what goes on in your household. But we appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah, I'm calling Sanford this weekend, so I'm excited about that. So looking forward to it. I'll have their 4 home games, and I was watching it yesterday. It was a tough one.
I'll say hopefully it goes better than that ETSU game yesterday.
They got to be a little better up front if they're going to have some success.
Well, the starting center, at least the starting center yesterday, is a kid I coached his sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school in Bo Myers. So if you want to just kind of shout him out, I'm sure he'll love that.
They'll all get shout outs through the course of the year. Because we're going to be focused on those guys. So that's just how it goes when I'm doing a game. So
absolutely. All right, Cole. Well, thanks so much, man. Take care and
thanks,
best
guys.
of luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Thank you. All right, Kyle. Well, we've got to get to a quick break. When we come back, we got a lot more to talk about down the road. So we'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all stick with us. Big news in the Dad's Watching Sports podcasting world. You've heard us mention it on the show already. We are now part of the Off the Ball Podcast Network. We're super excited to be joining the team of great shows, hopefully adding a little dad flavor to the mix. You can check out Off the Ball Podcast and Off the Ball Network on all your social media sites. Just search Off the Ball Network. And while you're there, give them a like and a follow. You won't regret it. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports. It's Michael Draper and Kyle Castles. Again, special thanks to Cole Cublic of ESPN, the SEC Network, for joining us in that last segment talking about college football. And Kyle, there's something going on in your household. You're laughing. I heard your wife laughing in the background. You're holding in something. Care to share what's going on here?
No, I don't care to share.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Man, there's a story here. We'll get to the bottom of this. Don't you guys worry.
I'll tell you what. Turn the broadcast off, me and you'll talk.
We'll discuss here in just a minute. Okay. So again, special thanks to Cole Cublic for coming on and talking college football, life on the road in the SEC. I was shocked to hear that Moana is not a fan favorite in this house because I feel like everyone loves Moana. But that's Frozen and Frozen 2. There you go.
Look, Frozen's great, but I mean.
It is.
Dwayne Johnson voicing Maui and Moana.
It's a tough get.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. So he talked about top 25, way too early top 25. Let's just kind of go through this really quickly. I'll give you kind of so we're going to run through top 6, a surprise that's maybe in your top 10, and then a sleeper outside that you think can make a run. I'll go with mine first, and then we'll get to you. So my top 6, somewhat similar to his, although I do have a couple of teams that are different. I've got Bama, number 1. I think, yes, they're losing a tremendous amount, both players, coaches, et cetera. But if we've learned anything about Nick Saban and Alabama is they come back year after year, and especially in years where people doubt them, they kind of outperform everybody continually. So I've got them number 1. I do have Georgia. Cole mentioned a lot about Georgia. I got them number 2, 3, Clemson. 4, Ohio State. 5 and 6 is where I get a little crazy here. I've got USC. They bring a lot back. They're in the Pac-12 where there's not going to be a whole lot going on out there. I've got USC as my number 5, and I've got Cincinnati, Kyle, as my number 6. In terms of surprises in my top 10, I don't really have any. I think it's going to be same old. It is almost every single year in college football. Yes, last year we had your Coastal Carolinas and your Louisianas, and these teams kind of pop up. But at the end of the day, the top 10 are going to be the top 10 almost every single year. I will give you a sleeper, though, Kyle. Going out to the Pacific Northwest, watch out for the Washington Huskies next year. Watch out for those pesky Huskies making a run at the college football playoff.
Washington, okay. So it's my top 6. I got Clemson 1. I understand we saw some of Bryce Young at Bama. I don't know that I'm sold yet. But I'm not going to try and say his name, but DJ, the kid that's going to be the quarterback there at Clemson.
Yep.
I like him. At number 2, I got Georgia. Cole mentioned it in his segment. I think their front 7 on defense might be the best in the nation, but they're losing 2 corners that are going to be drafted probably within the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. And I think they're going to have a hard time in the back end of the defense. I'm not saying that they're going to be bad. I just think there's going to be some growing pains. So I got Georgia at 2, Oklahoma at 3. If you notice, all 3 of these teams are bringing back a proven commodity at quarterback, and that's the big thing for me. Bama at 4. And if they're number 1 at the end, I'm not going to be surprised. I think of those 4, any of those could be your national champion when we look up in January of 2022. I know that Cole didn't put Ohio State in his top 5, but I do have Ohio State in my top 5. Ryan Day's a heck of a coach, and I think he can figure it out. And then I said earlier, North Carolina at number 6. I like what Mac Brown's doing and putting together there in Chapel Hill. So that's my top 6. I thought maybe it would be a surprise because I think Iowa State always gets looked over.
Sure.
But, Cole mentioned them, putting them in his top 6. I got Iowa State at number 7. I like Brock Purdy. They're bringing back the leading rusher in college football from last year. Iowa State, they're right there. They can give Oklahoma a run and did last year. And so I like Iowa State there. Outside of the top 15, look, Penn State for me, I think I have them like 20-something, like 23 or so. Look, I have heard James Franklin speak multiple times. I will not pick against him most of the time because that man has a way of getting people willing to run through a wall for him. And just listening to him speak at coaching conventions when I coached, it was impressive.
Sure.
And I think a lot of what hurt Penn State this last year was all of their opt-outs. You're not going to see that this coming fall. And I think Penn State, maybe, especially with the questions in Columbus, maybe can cause, make some noise there in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Penn State's always one of those teams that seems to kind of be right there. I know they had a down year this year, but, I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to kind of toss out this past year, and no disrespect to Alabama, who was going to win regardless if there were fans in the stands or anything else going on. But Penn State, they're a good choice there. All right, Kyle. So, we talked a lot about Auburn for obvious reasons with Cole. Their old coach, Gus Malzhan, we reported on this show, and I'm sure a lot of other people did. He was let go at Auburn. They decided to part ways, went away with like $23 million to basically just sit at home. Well, he's back. He has been hired by Central Florida, taking the job from the Black Knights that was once previously held by Josh Heupel, who went to Tennessee, and now Malzahn is back there. So my questions to you are, we'll do a couple of over-unders here. Over under 2 years till they, being UCF, make it back to a New Year's Six bowl with Malzahn as the coach.
I'm going to say over, and that doesn't mean that Gus isn't successful. I just think he's going to be there 3 years. I think the third year they're going to hit New Year's Six bowl, and then he will deuce out. And so that tells you how I'm going to answer your second question.
Okay, well, I think it's under. I think, they've got a really good nucleus there. I know this past year they weren't as good as they had been in the past, but they got a really good quarterback lined up there, UCF. So I'm going to take the under. But then I'm also going to take the over in our next question, which was going to be he stays 2.5 years. Gus has been in what is one of the more pressure cooker jobs in all the country in Auburn. And it didn't work out for him. I mean, yes, they went to a national championship game. He knocked off Alabama a handful of times. But at the end of the day, he's not coaching there anymore. I think he goes to UCF. He's able to recruit because he's still down in the Southeast. He's got the just unbelievable talent-rich state of Florida at his disposal. Right now, you could kind of say maybe other than Florida, UCF has had the most success of a Florida team over the past 5-7 years. I think he's there and he has a lot of success, and he's like, man, why would I leave? I can get it done here. And I think it's having somebody like Malzahn as the coach that can really kind of put them over the top in terms of really getting a bigger look at a top 6 into a top 4 into a playoff position. So I think he stays there. I'll give you maybe 4 or 5 years.
Here's why you're wrong. You don't know
because you played college football. Yes.
Well, but you're not a top flight athlete like I am.
That's right. I forgot. I'm sorry.
You don't understand what it's like to be as competitive as I am, as Gus Malzahn is. And yes, he can go and he can win and he can be successful for about as long as he wants to be there in Central Florida. I think it's in Orlando, right?
Yes.
He can do that. But he has tasted what it's like to win an SEC title, tasted what it's like to win a national title when he won it with Cam. He's done that. He's going to want to get back to, like, we thrive on that pressure. We're not afraid of it. We want that pressure. We want, you call it a pressure cooker. We want that. We crave it. We desire it. So he still craves it. He still desires it. And you want to do it on the biggest stage. And that biggest stage doesn't have to be the SEC. Maybe it's a Big 10 school. Maybe it's a Big 12 school. Maybe it's a Pac-12 school. Maybe SC comes calling when they figure out Clay Helton's not their guy. But he can't stay in Central Florida and have that pressure that we feed on. So there you go.
All right. So a couple of things that's completely flawed with your logic.
Well, nothing. Exactly. Nothing.
First off, only one of these individuals on this broadcast has completed an Ironman competition. So I would think in terms of
that is competing against yourself. That is not competing.
Absolutely not. You're competing against a clock.
Division I athlete. Only one of us is a Division I.
You have to compete against a clock. You have to get done in enough time. Number two, Malzahn was not the coach for Cam when they won the national championship. That was Gene Chizik. So he has not won a national championship. And UCF can be just as of a pressure cooker or as much pressure, but you don't have to go through the SEC. You don't have to face Alabama every single year, and you can still have a shot to get there every single year. So he will stay, Kyle. Gene Chizik, look him up. He was the coach at Auburn.
I'm not going to argue. You're right.
He appears to be a very nice guy. Well, Kyle, it is that time of the show again where I know it's your favorite part of the show. And that is
Monkey Knife Fight.
And Kyle, it's a daily fantasy sports gaming website for the casual sports fan. It's simple, it's fun, and it's easy to play. It's casual, Kyle. We're talking sweatpants and a t-shirt. We're not going 3-piece suit or like I was a couple of days ago with the suit top and shorts.
That was a great picture, by the way.
Thank you. Users determine which superstars competing in the day's professional sporting events, Kyle, will record more or less in the same contest line provided. MKF's daily fantasy prop games play similarly to the salary cap-based DFS games, but without the algorithms because, we don't like the math, Kyle, and there's no lineups, and more importantly, there are no sharks. Baby sharks. There are several contests to choose from, none of which require hours of research required for competing sites. Start with a simple 2 for 2 or go for the highest payout 100 times and higher by selecting an 8 for 8 more or less contest, Kyle. You can get started right now with a 100% instant match bonus up to $50 with a promo code off. What's the promo code, Kyle?
Off the ball.
Of course it is.
You better know that one.
Of course it is. We'll also know it's time for a break. We're going to go quick break. We'll be right back. Last segment. We'll be back on Dad's Watching Sports. Coming up next week on Dad's Watching Sports, it's the last day of February, which means March Madness is upon us. And the dads are going to talk some college basketball, getting you ready for the big dance. Also, the dads are joined by Ryan Watson and Jonathan Boren from the Coach's Corner podcast, part of the Broadway sports media platform here in Nashville. So check us out next week on Dad's Watching Sports. We'll see you then. We're back here, last segment, Dad's Watching Sports. Hey, what are you doing there, Kyle? Kyle Castle's notes. What are those? Kyle Castle's Michael Draper. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week. Again, special thanks to Cole Cublic of ESPN, the SEC Network, for joining us. If you're streaming us live and you just caught the show and you haven't gone back and listened to his, check out the podcast. You can download it anywhere you listen to podcasts. We go about 35 minutes with Cole at the beginning of the show, which was great. We appreciate his time, and he was fantastic going through SEC football, what it was like going through COVID, and we didn't even get to touch on his broadcast partners of Tom Hart and Jordan Rogers. Those guys are awesome, but definitely go back.
Tell him when we were going to get to that question that we never got to. I was going to say you need to tell Jordan that my wife said hello because she loved him when he was on The Bachelor.
I forgot he was a Bachelor guy. Did he won too, right?
Or maybe he was on Bachelorette. I don't remember. He was on one of them, and I don't think he won. I think he got sent home, and I think he became the Bachelor and ended up.
Okay.
I think he's still with the girl that he ended up picking.
My
Ultimately.
man, Jordan. Things are good. He's on The Bachelor. He's on the SEC Network. He's got the girl.
Look at that man. When you look like that, you can do what you want.
Well, you better, because your brother's Aaron Rodgers, and he's had a pretty good, career. And
talk about that. Apparently, they don't. There's not a whole lot of.
They don't
between the two. Yeah,
they don't like each other.
I don't know. Just you got to watch the show, and
we've got Rogers brother beef, is what you're saying.
Apparently,
well, that's what we should have asked Cole about. So, Cole, if you're still listening, and I know you are, let us know when you can come back on, because I want all the details on this Rogers brothers beef.
We don't want Cole. We want Jordan on to figure out the.
Well, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Okay, Kyle, let's get through a couple of things really quickly. So the smoke detector.
Hang on, Lauren was here listening to me. He was on The Bachelorette, and he won because JoJo picked him. There you go.
JoJo
picked Jordan. That's right. And apparently they're still together.
JoJo picked Jordan, and they are still together.
And Lauren says she's available if we ever get Jordan Rogers on. She'll be on that show with us.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll make it happen. I mean, we've got a pretty good SEC Network thing going here. We've had Peter Burns. Now we've had Cole Kubelik.
Hey, I will say I feel like Cole made us more I don't know what the word is, more official with his ESPN mic.
I know, right? I was thinking, how do we get that thing? Maybe I should just create one and have here so it looks a little bit official, like we're doing that. All right, Kyle. So last week, this show always has some sort of technical issues. The whole day I've been sweating, thinking like, please don't have technical issues when he's on the show. Like, just come on, and we didn't, and thank God. But last week the smoke detector goes off. It's going off for multiple segments, and I finally decide, okay, here we go. And so I went back and listened to your commentary about the show, or about me as I was putting this on, and I don't know that I overly agree with your breakdown of my lack of ability to change out that battery. Can you speak for yourself?
Well, I don't have to. If you will not just listen to it, but go to the YouTube page, pull up last week, episode 52, pull up last week's video, and watch yourself, then you don't have to ask me to speak. You will see yourself struggling the whole time.
I don't think so. I mean, you even texted me afterwards and said, glad you didn't fall and break a hip.
That's because I was worried. You're old. Like, I don't know, like, how much calcium you've lost. I don't know how brittle your bones are. Like,
get out of here, man.
Old man at this point.
Well, the one comment that I'll be honest, I laughed. I did an LOL and I laughed out loud. But then afterwards, I was like, man, that was a shot. You did your best Kevin Harlan impersonation, and it was good. I'll give you credit. It was very good. But saying that I'm the kind of guy that would slide at the one, man, that cut deep.
Well, the truth hurts, and I love you. I love you. We're best friends. We go way back. We were like 9 or 10 or whatever when we met. We go way back. But brother, I know you.
Slide at the one.
Any man that will hit his best friend in the back with a 2x4,
who was asking for it, may I add,
is the type of dude that would slide at the one. That's all I'm saying.
It's not happening, man. I would put the head down and go all in. All right, Kyle. Give us a quick update on this. Is very poor transition, but give us a quick update on Jack's allergy treatment for those of you who are not familiar. I'll let you catch everybody up, but what's the latest and what are things looking like there?
Yeah, so Jack is my middle son. He is 4 years old now. He has a severe tree nut allergy. We found that out Christmas 2019 when he got rushed to the hospital. It was right before Christmas 2019, right after my youngest, Hannah, was born. And he was out with Paw Paw, and he ate some cashews and ended up having an allergic reaction. And by the time he got to the hospital, they ended up having to, strip him down on a gurney on the way to the ER. They intubated him, all this kind of stuff. It's a bad deal. And so we've spent now just over a year going like, this is not the way we want our child to live, to be in fear of what can I eat, what can I not eat, having to read labels for the rest of his life, all of that. And my wife found this place out in California, the Southern California Food Allergy Institute, and we got into the institute. We got into the program. We've already had our first appointment. We're going back middle of March for his second appointment. This one is 4 days of appointments. The first day we're going to go in, we're going to get blood work results that are basically going to tell us, because we've done what's called a skin prick test, and that's where they just take needles that have the proteins of a bunch of different tree nuts on them, and they scratch his back with those needles, and they look at what reacts right under his skin and say this is where what he's allergic to. With doing 2 of those, we've gotten inconsistent results. So we're going to get the blood work back, and we'll know for sure this is what he is allergic to and what he's not. On that day, they'll give him, I forget what it's called, but it's essentially they're going to tape, those nuts to his back, and I forget what it's called. And he's going to hold it there for 24 hours and then come back. And at that point, they will assess, what has the most chance for a severe reaction from there. And then the next 2 days, this is where it gets really exciting and really scary. The next 2 days, we'll be doing what they call food challenges. So we're literally going to take him and he will eat what should make him react anaphylactically, and that is scary. But
sure,
what we've been doing for the last 2 months, I forget when we started, is giving him different types of food that they told us to give us until his appointment. And so we've been doing that, and supposedly him eating that much over that period of time of different things. So it's apples, it's pears, what they call stone fruit, so any fruit that has a large pit in it, and peaches, things like that, and cooked buckwheat.
Okay.
Yeah. Cooked buckwheat, which, we had no clue. Buckwheat's not something you cook with very often, but
no, it's one of the little rascals.
Lauren found a cookie recipe, a chocolate chip cookie with the buckwheat. The boys like the buckwheat cookies.
Nice.
They're not that good.
Yeah.
But if you eat them, it works. It gets the cooked buckwheat in. So we've got that going. So supposedly with him eating all of this, all these other things right now, and the amount he's supposed to eat, when we go in and he eats his allergies, he should not react.
Gotcha.
And so depending on how many things he's allergic to, we'll get our plan at that point of how many of these food challenges we're going to do and how long this is going to take. Because it's just, as far as we know, it's just tree nut allergies for him. We're hoping we're towards the kind of quicker to average time span in this. So maybe like a year and a half to 2 years, and we're already, a few months in. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys are definitely in our thoughts and prayers, and please continue to update us, especially when you guys get back from that second trip out there.
Yeah.
All right, last two things here, Kyle. I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, but the Chicago Bulls put out a tweet maybe a day or two ago. It was retweeted by ESPN or SportsCenter, somebody on the ESPN platform. And the tweet read like this: "You're offered $5 million to score against Michael Jordan in a one-on-one matchup. You're given 10 chances to score one time, but it's against prime MJ." So you're thinking like anywhere from 90 to 97, 98 Michael Jordan. If you do not score, so if you do score, $5 million, you get 10 chances. If you do not score, you will never be able to hear music again. You lacing up?
Man, no, I like my music too much.
What about the Division I athlete who's been in the trenches and wants competition? And what happened to that guy? Because that guy was just here talking about all that trash a few seconds ago.
Are we saying that any foul is allowed? Because that changes my mind.
I think this is a regularly officiated game of one-on-one in which you call your own.
Look, I played football. I didn't play basketball. I went scoreless in church league games. You think I can score on Mike? Come on, brother. You know that.
I mean, I know that. I was just curious if you would take the opportunity. And so here's my take on this. Originally when I read this, I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm not going to do that. But then I reread the question, and it says, if you fail, you won't be able to hear music ever again. And I thought, okay, well, when I first read it, I thought, I would just be deaf and I would never hear anything. We would never hear your children talk again. Would never hear, I don't even know what your favorite team winning a game or, whatever have you. But then I saw it was just music. And I mean, I love music. But for $5 million and knowing, there is a very, very good chance that I would not score at all. I mean, it probably higher than 90. I'll give it 97%, but there's still 3% that I could get one shot off, and it only takes one.
No.
So I think I do it.
In 10? You think you can get 1 in 10 off?
I think I can get one shot off. Now, whether it went in or not. In.
Come on, man.
Hang on.
And what happens when Emma decides she wants to be a theater kid in high school and she gets the lead in the school musical and you can't hear her perform?
Well, that's a great question. But here's my thought process behind that. Okay, I come up to a basketball court and Michael Jordan in his prime sees me. He's thinking, that guy ain't got nothing. And so the very first shot, I'm just saying I just step back and pull a three and just I feel good about my first shot.
No. We're talking about Michael Jordan. We're not talking about anybody. We're talking about Michael Jordan, the dude that
I realize that. I realize that.
You put Michael Jordan and his 6-year-old kid on the court, and Mike's not letting him get a shot off. He's thinking you get a come on, brother. He's the GOAT for a reason.
He is, but I'm telling you, it's the element of surprise because he looks at me and thinks, "This ain't no way." And he's thinking, okay, this guy's, a little beefy. He's about 6'4". Maybe he's going to come down the block. And I just pull up right off literally I check it. He checks it back and I pull up and I get one good shot off. I'll be honest. I won't get another shot off. I'm not denying that. I will not get another one. But if I can get that first one.
But here's the thing. You got to remember, that's going to be Michael Jordan right there. And if you think for a minute that you can focus enough to get a good shot off when that's Michael Jordan staring at you for that shot, you got to airball that thing, man. I'm telling you, it's not worth it.
You know what's going to happen? It's going to go in, and I'm just going to give him the shoulder shrug.
Wow.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, Kyle, last thing here, and then we got to get out of here. I don't know if you saw this as well, but there was a plane yesterday. It was over the kind of Denver area. I think it was a U.S. Airlines flight. I'm going to pull up a picture here of what the engine turned into.
Yep.
So Kyle, you look out your window and you see that as a passenger on a flight, you can see the ground there below. This is some of the debris that was found in someone's yard. I was also there. So Kyle, you look out your window. You're on flight 328 United. I said it was American Airlines. My apologies. And you see that. First off, do you immediately crap yourself? And then secondly, do you ever fly again?
So here's the thing. Do I ever fly again? Yes. Do I get worried? Absolutely. Nobody in their right mind is going to look out, see that engine on fire, and freak out. But here's the first thing you got to do once you see that. Feel your surroundings. Does it feel like the plane is out of control? If it doesn't, no reason to freak out yet.
You're way you just use this analogy of me seeing Michael Jordan and being like, what am I going to do here? And you're trying to put yourself in this, and you're thinking out. You're thinking you look out the plane, and there is a engine on fire, and you're going to be like, well, let me just look around and see what's going on here.
No, you're not going to look around.
No, absolutely not.
You're going to feel like you're at that window. You're looking out. You can tell if you're getting closer to that ground in a hurry or not. And if you're not, you're going to say, okay, I can make it through this. Now, we may have to land quickly. That's okay. All right? Look,
this logic is not. Here's what you're going to scream like a little girl.
No,
you're going to poop your pants, and then you're never getting on the flight again.
Look. We hear about the fire and we hear about the debris, right? But not about the crash. Why do we not hear about the crash? Because there was no crash, bro. Here's the thing. The reason this is getting so much news is because this is the exception and not the rule. All right?
Well, of course.
And at the end of the day, even in the exception, nobody got hurt unless some of the debris hit somebody.
I was going to say, you just never know. Well, if I looked out, I probably would immediately pass out. I don't like flying anyways. And so if I saw that, it would be.
Oh, by the way, my wife can't stand to fly, and we're going to fly in the middle of March, and she just saw the pictures. Like, I hadn't said a word about it in my house. And
you're talking about that picture right there?
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
That's all right, Lauren. I hate to fly too. I had a panic attack on a flight one time, and I just can't do it anymore. All right, well, Kyle, it's been good. We have gone way over our time, but it's been as fun as always.
This is Off the Ball Network. They don't cap us anymore.
They don't. That's right. They don't constrain us by those time constraints. They let us do whatever we want, which is awesome, and we appreciate them for that. But thank you, sir. Thanks to Cole Cublic. We will be back next week with Dad's Watching Sports. Until then, we will see you. Oh, and how about those Cats beating down the dirty, stinking Tennessee Vols? We'll see you next week.